Well, good evening and welcome. Today is Thursday, February the 25th, 2021. Once again, I am happy to have you sharing with us on another live streaming broadcast of Let's Talk About It. As you know, we're just 3 days left in this month, which means 3 days left of Black History Month. And so we want to take some time this evening on our final Thursday in this month to kind of talk about just a little bit what has history taught African Americans. And I know that many of you would agree with me that it appears as if we've been taught that not to trust anyone. And certainly with all that we've seen in the news and read in the papers and watched unfolding in our communities, there is much that we have to be concerned about. And so I trust that you will join in with me and tune in for the entire broadcast. We're going to have our Black History moment that will be shared with us by our Black History participant this evening, Miss Marjorie Lilly, who has done an outstanding job the last 2 Thursdays sharing with us Black History moments. We're trusting that our co-host, Dr. Davis, will also join us. And then certainly we want to hear from you, our listening and viewing audience. For those of you who are watching by way of Facebook, we trust that you have liked this stream or this page, and also that you have shared it with your friends. And then for those who are viewing by way of YouTube, we trust that you have subscribed to this channel and then click the little bell so that you will be notified each time that we come on and broadcast. We are trying to do our best to be relative to our community, to keep you informed about what's going on and talk about the issues that really matter to us. And so, once again, we're going to get into it. We're going to peel back the layers, talk about it as much as we can, as much as time will allow. And certainly, if you will accept the disclaimer from StreamYard, we would love to hear from you, your comments that you can write in, and we'll be able to put them right up on the screen live. If you do that, just acknowledge it and you can share your comments with us. Once again, we are looking forward to a great broadcast on this evening. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Well, good evening and welcome to another live streaming broadcast of Let's Talk About It. I am your host, Reverend Edward Mason, and I will be leading you in another event of sharing where we will talk about our topic tonight is what has history taught African Americans. We know that normally during Black History Month, we go down the list of our forefathers and ancestors who have paved the way and have made things possible for us to achieve and to accomplish what we have accomplished even today. I know there are many that have essays that they allow the young folk and those who are in school to write. Most folk talk about W.E.B. Du Bois and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Marcus Garvey and Harriet Tubman and um, all of those persons in our history. And it's always good to be reminded. Yes, Rosa Parks is one. It's always good to be reminded of where we have come from, and then also to be encouraged about where we can go. But listen, somewhere between looking at where we've been and then viewing where we're going, we have to do a self-examination of where we are. And I think we have to be true and be real and face the facts that where we are today, most of us, if not all of us, feel as though we should be much further down the line. Yes, yes, when you look at the achievements, the accomplishments, the education that's been made available, the knowledge that has been opened and exposed that we can get a hold of, I'm sure that you would agree that many of us in our culture should be further down the line. We can look at the accomplishments. Yes, we have access to integrated schools. We have access in some ways, and I use the term some, to higher education. We have access in some ways to employment that gives us the ability to not just be working on levels of custodial positions or in the mailroom, but many have risen above the ranks, even to be CEOs and presidents and chairman of the board at various companies. We've found ourselves in places of financial affluence. We have, in some cases, more money, and I use the term some cases, more money than what we had, or are making more money than what we have. We found ourselves being millionaires in some cases, and we don't have to go down the list and call all of the persons who have achieved the status of being a millionaire. But when you look at all of these things, the question still remains, why is it that we are not further down the road? Why is it that we don't have more millionaires, African American millionaires, both male and female? Why is it we don't have more African American presidents and CEOs and chairman of the boards at companies and businesses? Why is it that we seem to be the last hired and are still the first fired? Even in the midst of this pandemic, all the statistics, all of the reports are still showing that Black and brown skinned people are still suffering the most. We're suffering as it relates to job loss during this pandemic, jobs that have been severely impacted because of COVID-19 and the restrictions, and over 500,000 people have lost their lives to this virus, and many of them are African American and brown skinned people. And even now that the several vaccines have been developed and have been put on the market and being distributed around this country, the report came out just a few weeks ago that still African American and brown skinned people are still being underachieved or under-vaccinated simply because of where they live. And then there are other things that we have to look at, things about where we go, where we find ourselves in our neighborhoods and in our communities, where some of them are out on the outskirts of town. They're not aware they have the ability to receive. Even they call them food deserts. They don't have access to grocery stores and supermarkets where they can get good fresh fruits and vegetables. And so they don't even have access in some cases to convenience stores or the drugstores. And it's just sad when we look at where we are as African American people. And although we have this month dedicated every year, the month of February is dedicated to African American or Black History Month, we still are fighting, trying to achieve and be considered equal. We're still facing challenges of being recognized as being equal and having the ability to accomplish and have the scale not being tipped to the side or in the favor of someone else, simply because of our skin color, not because we aren't competent enough to be educated or to be developed or to achieve, not because we don't have the know-how or the ability. We still have some people that are being held back on their jobs for positions of promotion simply because they're African Americans. Come on, let's be real about it. The facts have showed that even those persons, many of those businesses, those mom and pop and small businesses that have been affected by this pandemic, were not able to receive even the free grant money that was offered and given and supposedly set aside for small businesses. Many of them were not even able to receive it because they were African Americans, didn't have access to certain banks and lending institutions because they didn't have a history. It's not because we aren't qualified. No, let's be real about it. It's not because that we, and as some say that we're just lazy. No, not all African Americans are lazy. No, I beg to differ with you. However, we are dealing in a system that is not fair. It is not equal. It is not just. And as it has been coined, when we find ourselves dealing with the law and in the court, you go to the courthouse, as they said they said it in a joking way, but they meant what they said. You go to court looking for justice, and that's just what you find, just us, African Americans. We are the ones that are being penalized. We are the ones that are getting sentences and having justice meted out to us in an alarming rate. They posted on many occasions, even recently, that the statistics of African Americans versus white folk who have done the same crime, and how the book was thrown at those who were African Americans and was given the maximum amount of time, the maximum judge. Even in fact, some of them received sentences that was so harsh that the sentence they received was worse than someone who had committed murder. All of the facts are there. All of the facts are there, and I come to tell you this afternoon, I'm not a racist. I'm not a person that doesn't understand how things are. Yet my eyes are wide open. I see things clearly, just the way they are. However, we must learn some lessons. And when I say we, I'm talking about those of us who are African Americans. We must learn some lessons from the past, and we must learn some lessons from yesterday. I'm not talking about just lessons from 20 and 30 and 50 and 100 years ago. There are some lessons we need to learn from last month. There are some lessons we need to learn from last week. There are some lessons we need to learn from yesterday. In fact, today some of us went through some things that we should learn from. My brothers and my sisters, one of the things that I think we should learn is that we cannot expect for somebody to always give us something on a silver platter. We should be willing to work hard and put in the time and the investment into whatever it is that we are willing to acquire so that we can do it and achieve it just like anybody else. But I say we should not have to fight the system of equality, especially in this age in which we live in. We should not have to deal with all of the things that we're dealing with the law, with police brutality and unfair justice systems and unfair business practices and unfair discrimination, whether you're black or whether you're male or whether you're female. All of those things we should not be dealing with in today's society. One of the things that we need to do is we need to learn how to educate ourselves. And one of the problems that I find talking to many people, and I'm saying African Americans in particular, one of the problems that I find is we don't know what we think we know. We don't know it. We heard somebody say something and we take what they said and we run with it. We haven't researched it. We haven't read about it. We haven't delve into it. We haven't peeled back the layers to find out whether or not it's really true or not. All we know is we heard somebody just like us say something and we took it and we ran with it. And the problem is we don't like to read. We don't like to read. And when you don't read, much of the information that is shared, you are not privy to. Now, there was a time before the internet and all of that, surfing the web. There was a time when in just about every African American home, they would always have a newspaper. Every morning, whether mama was home, a homemaker, or whether father was retired, or even if he had to get his lunchbox and go to work, they had a newspaper and they would sit down and they would read the newspaper. They didn't have a whole lot of books, did not have a whole lot of things accessible to them, but they would sit down and read the newspaper. But you know what I found out, my brothers and sisters, in talking to a lot of people? Most of what folk read in the newspaper was the front page. Come on now. The horoscopes, the obituaries, and then the men would read the sports section. Those were the sections that they read in the newspaper. And then on Sunday, y'all remember Sunday newspaper? Used to be that great big old paper. Well, they buy the Sunday newspaper for the sales section and the circulars in the middle and the coupons. I know we don't do much clipping coupons anymore, but yeah, we used to clip coupons because that's how we were able to make it a little better than what we were before we had the coupons. We get those coupons and we try to find the supermarkets that would give you double value for your coupon. So if you had a coupon that was 25 cents off, then if you took it to that certain supermarket, you would get double value. That would be 50 cents off. And if you had a $1 coupon, you'd get two. Listen, I don't know about y'all, but I used to shop with coupons. In fact, I had members in my family, they used to call me the SSF man. Can I tell you what the SSF stood for? Sale, special, or free. I was the guy that would go to the supermarket and buy, and if it wasn't on sale, and if it wasn't a special, and if it wasn't buy one, get one free, 9 times out of 10, if I didn't really need it, I didn't buy it. because I had to make it the best way I could. I had to take care of my family. I had to struggle. Nobody gave me anything on a silver platter. I had to work. I remember working 2 and 3 jobs. I remember getting out there in the morning and not coming home till at night and working part-time jobs, trying to make ends meet, trying to keep food on the table and a roof over my head. But you know what I learned? I learned how to read. And I would pick up books. And I would pick up newspapers. And I would pick up magazines. And I would read articles because I wanted to learn. I would read the Bible. I was raised in a Christian home, and we had to read the Bible. Wasn't no just saying you read it. Mama was going to know that you read the Bible. In fact, we had to sit down at the kitchen table. We weren't really allowed. Come on now. We weren't really allowed to sit in the dining room at the dining room table. You know, the dining room table had that plastic cover over the table. You know, that clear, heavy plastic, and the chairs had the vinyl slip covers over them, just like they did in the living room. We weren't able to sit at the dining room table. We only went in the dining room for special occasions. You know, but we sat at the kitchen table after Mama finished cooking, after Mama finished making rolls. I mean, homemade rolls. I'm not talking about Pillsbury biscuits. I ain't talking about crescent rolls. I'm talking about Mama used to make homemade rolls and homemade biscuits. And then later on, then she started using something called Bisquick. I know don't nobody know anything about Bisquick. Bisquick seemed like to me was the remedy for everything in the kitchen. They used Bisquick to make rolls. They used Bisquick to make cakes. They used Bisquick to make bread. They used Bisquick to make everything. But you still had to add some stuff to it. But the bottom line is after Mama finished doing all she needed to do with the kitchen, she'd make us sit down at the kitchen table. She'd clean it off and wipe it off and dry it off. And we had to sit down there. And we'd be all around the table. And we all would have our different books and our Bibles, and we would read. Because Mama wanted to make sure that we got an education. And maybe we need to get back to that, friends and family. Maybe we need to get back to sitting around at the kitchen table. I know we don't even eat meals no more. We don't eat at the table no more. We some persons are eating in the bedroom, some eating in the den, some eating in the family room, some eating in the living room, some eating in the kitchen. We don't sit around the table and have family time anymore. Maybe that's a lesson that we should learn as African Americans. Because you know what? When we sat around the table, we engaged in conversation. We talked about what happened today in school. We talked about what happened today in the neighborhood. Mama and Daddy got to hear what we had to say, and we got to hear what they had to say. We learned how to communicate and to articulate. Yeah, we learned that. That was something we learned. That was a part of African American, our home history. We didn't have the cell phones, and we didn't have the iPads and the iPhones and the tablets and all of the devices, the electronic devices that keep us busy. What have we lost by gaining so much? We've gone so far, but yet we've gone so far backwards. What have we lost? Where should we have been by now? What should we have learned? I know because of this pandemic, schools have been doing virtual learning, and they haven't been able to do some things that they used to do. But listen, with all this technology, I always ask my grandkids when I talk to them, did you read a book? Did you read a book? I want them to know that reading is important. We cannot look for other people to make things better for us. We have to take advantage of every opportunity that we have been given. I was going through some materials and I ran across an article where Dr. Daryl did a article. He did talked about Daryl Bradford. Last year was interviewed by a Philadelphia news station, and he was interviewed about the humanity of Blackness, what's missing from history classes. He talked about how to transform Black history and education in the school system. There's been many conversations about transforming the school system. There's been much talk about that. And so I pulled that up and I want to share it with you. I want to share it with you today and let you hear the interview and listen to what he has to say. And let me know if his views, yes, his views, let me know if his views make sense to you.
Problem is information, knowing what's real, what's not, and somewhere in that, information can become dangerous. One way to help navigate the endless stream of info is educating ourselves. Hey, I want to read you a quick quote. Black lives matter and Black education matters because freedom matters. Only when Black folks are safe to both learn and live will America be free. There's a powerful quote that rings true to many across the country. The quote was penned by Daryl Bradford in an essay that made the rounds last week. He's the executive director of the New York Campaign for Achievement. He's joining us from New York City to talk about what he meant with that quote. And Daryl, it's great to have you. In your essay, you tried to explain why the phrase "all lives matter" just doesn't work right now. And I wonder if you can explain that to us.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. If you and 3 or 4 of your friends are out for a long bike ride and one of your friends falls and gets hurt, that's the friend you give the Band-Aid to. That's the friend you give the aid to. That doesn't mean you don't care about your other friends. It just means that your friend that is hurt is the one who gets the care. So that's the difference between my hurt friend matters and all friends matter. And right now, as African American people, in this country, and this is, the setup to this is great. The data is great on it. Like Black folks are your friend that's hurting. Like black folks are the people who, for the most part, like we're watching ourselves on social media, sort of being killed, being executed in ways that are deeply impactful. And we need your help and attention, support, and aid. And it's just like if you understand that, then it makes more sense that everybody can't be safe until the people who are most put upon are safe. And that is really at the core of like the Black Lives Matter assertion in the world. And I think part of the rise in popularity lately is that people are finally starting to internalize that in a really meaningful way.
And so as they do that, your essay kind of peels the onion back another layer and says not only do lives matter, Black lives matter, but specifically now that Black education matters too. And that's really where I think a lot of people kind of were looking towards your essay, and it took them deeper into that thought that you just acknowledged so many people are internalizing right now.
So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate that you read it. I never think anybody reads anything I write, so thank you. But so 2 things. I'm engaged with a lot of schools. I'm on the board of a big network of schools, and one of the things we always say is that a person who is not well educated is not going to get justice for George Floyd. Like we need as many people empowered and schooled as possible to go and like make the change to the apparatus of government that we all live in. So I just want to like throw that out there. The second thing is just that much like policing, education policy is the creature of lots of other things. And in a lot of respects, like education policy in particular has been the creature of a lot of racist policy and like housing redlining in particular being the number one thing, right, which, meant you can't move. This is the school you're going to go to. And that fueled lots of systemic disinvestment in schools and a bunch of other stuff. And it also ruined the character of what I would say were lots of schools with lots of Black teachers in, the 40s and 50s that were teaching Black folks to be the best versions of themselves, like with a history and an understanding of who we have been as a people, both historically and in the history of America. And so as long as the demand is that, Black folks have to do what everybody else does in this context, we're never, like, you have an all education matters solution to the problem, not one that specifically addresses the character and community and hopes and fears and dreams of Black kids who are trying to become the best versions of themselves and really like live the American promise, which is something to which we all aspire.
Do you think that that's the key? So many people, as I think you correctly pointed out, are internalizing right now. And those that have accepted what they've internalized, I think, are quickly looking toward a better future and what, changes and things need to happen going forward. Is education, if you had to change one thing, I mean, is that what you think would make an impact long term and sort of a permanent shift?
Yeah, so at the risk of being over the top about it, if you're not well educated, you're never truly free. And you never get a chance to meet people who are like you in different places or not like you in the same place you are as an equal. And so there are lots of things that education doesn't change, right? Like there's smart people who are racist. And so it's not a disinfectant that cleans everything, but it does empower every person to at least be influenced in a way that that ignorance does not allow. And so our society is complicated. It's interconnected. There are lots of other policies we need to work on. But to me, education is the most important thing because it's the only thing that once you get it, nobody can ever take it away from you.
You in the essay beautifully used the word empathy, and it resonated for me because it's kind of been my watchword during this season as I've been learning and speaking with people and trying to increase my own understanding. And as you talk about our society, its interconnectedness, there may be people listening to you this morning and kind of tensing up because they disagree or have a difference of opinion. And so I wonder if you could tell me about your a great use of that word. And ultimately, to me, it seems like the linchpin for some of these things sticking and staying.
Yeah, so at our organization, we spend a lot of time talking about how to bring people together. But part of the challenge of this moment in America is that too few people care about what people they disagree with care about. And so like Arthur Brooks, who's a scholar, he said, you'll never be friends with somebody if the feeling they get from you is contempt. And so I think one of the most important things we can do right now, and in particular on this issue, because I can remember when Colin Kaepernick took a knee and the world was going crazy. Right. And now somebody took a knee on a Black man on camera and the world finally gets it. And that's a huge change in a very small period of time. So it's like I'm hopeful, about that. But the idea that that other people have experiences, you got to respect that even when people disagree with you, and that you work sort of constructively toward partnership, change, a better future, instead of destructively toward the incredibly divided society we have right now, which is helping no one, is something I hope all people would embrace.
All right, the essay is beautiful. Google Gerald Bradford if you haven't read it. He's the executive director of the New York Campaign for Achievement. Gerald, thanks so much for your time.
Well, Daryl said, if you're not well educated, you're not really free. Let me bring in our co-host, Dr. Davis. Bring him into the screen. Dr. Davis, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About It.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And from what I heard, it's a very interesting topic.
Yes, sir. Let me also bring in our Black History Month orator, Miss Marjorie Lilly. Good evening, Sister Lilly. Sister Lilly, I can't hear you. Are you muted?
Yes, I was. Good
All
evening.
right. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Listen,
Good evening.
Daryl Bradford said, if you're not well educated, then you are not you're not actually free. That's what Daryl said. I've got camera issue again, so my camera is out, but y'all can still hear me.
Yeah.
So that's what he said. If you're not well educated, you're not really free. Here is the thing: you cannot do what you don't know to do. It's just impossible. And you can't deal with or beat a system if you don't know the system that you're trying to deal with.
That's right.
You've got to know the system. You've got to know what you're dealing with. You have to know exactly what's going on. You have to know it. What do you say, Dr. Davis?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. What he was saying, and I think I understood what he was saying, but I wish he had time more to clarify, but I think I understand basically what he's saying, because once again, it's a terrible thing not to be educated. And the world we live in today, everybody needs to be educated. You need to understand the educational system. You need to understand the system in which we live. You need to be educated so you know how to deal with folk and you know how to deal with certain situations. I think from the past, this is why we keep winding up having these racial wars and racial and tension, because once again, I don't think the white folks want to understand us. And I feel like sometimes even the blacks don't want to understand themselves. But that's my personal opinion. But I think, once again, you need to be educated so you know how to deal with the system. Because I tell people right now, by the time you learn the system, they're going to change the system. By the time you catch up with what they're doing, then they're going to change it. That's the way they always done it. So, you know, I agree with you, but you need to be on top of your game. You need to be educated, because once again, that's the only way you're going to be able to get ahead and understand the system before they change the system.
Well, one of the old sayings that they used to say, Sister Lily, is every time we learn the game, they change the rules.
They changed the rules.
That's right. That's right.
What Dr. Davis was saying, every time we learn the game, they change the rules.
Change the rules.
You know,
That's right.
one of the things they used to always say is, well, you need to learn how to do it. Well, you need to learn how to do it. You need to learn how to do it. And so then once we learn how to do it, then they change the rules on how it's done. Then they say,
right.
We don't do it that way anymore.
Yep.
Oh, we don't do it that way anymore. Well, I know, Sister Lily, you have another great presentation for us, and so I want to give you ample time
Okay.
to share your presentation. So I'm going to let you go ahead and do what you need to do right now, and then we can continue collaborating after you have given us your beautiful presentation.
Good evening once again to everyone. First, I want to thank Reverend Mason and you too, Dr. Davis, for allowing me to share some Black history information. Today, I want to give some little, I call them Black history nuggets. Some of them you know, and some you may not be aware of. History is often reduced to a handful of memorable moments and events. You hear stories about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad that led people to freedom. Or you hear about Sojourner Truth, who escaped with her baby daughter to freedom and was the first Black woman to win a case in a court. You hear about Dr. Martin Luther King and his I Have a Dream speech. These are only a few of the magnificent and important events to know and remember. Black History was established Negro History Month now, but it was known as Negro History Week. And it was established in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson. The second week of February was Negro History Week, and it included Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass' birthday. President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month in 1976. And if you don't believe me, you heard Pastor Reverend Mason, go to the books, search, and find out if that's not true. So now we celebrate the whole month of February. Now here's nugget number one. Did you know that Ray Charles had a nickname? He was called Genius of Soul, but he preferred Brother Ray. Born September 1930, he died June 10th, 2004. Nugget number two. Most people think that Rosa Parks was the first Black person to refuse to give up her seat on a bus. Actually, there were several women who came before her. Actually, there was one child who came before her. She was 15 years old, Claudette Colvin. On March 2nd, 1955, she refused to move to the back of the bus. Now, this was 9 months before Rosa Parks. Claudette had been studying about Black leaders in her segregated school. They were studying about people, just like I said, Harriet Tubman or Sojourner Truth. So when the driver ordered her to get up and move to the back, she refused. She said it felt like Sojourner Truth had her hand on her shoulder and was pushing her down on one side, and Harriet Tubman was pushing on the other side. She said, I just couldn't get up. But she didn't stop there. Later, she was arrested and thrown in jail. She was one of the 4 women who challenged the court on the segregation law. She won in Montgomery and in the court of Alabama. This story has largely been forgotten because at that time, the NAACP and other Black organizations felt that Rosa Parks made a better icon for the movement. Ms. Parks was also the secretary of the NAACP. She was well known and respected. People would associate her with the middle class, and that would attract support for the cause. But the struggle to end segregation was often fought by young people, more than half of which were women. Nugget number 3, the raised finger. Some people think that this is a church tradition, but it actually began in slavery. Some people in some churches still use it, but it goes all the way back to slavery. If a master had brought some of his slaves to a public event, he would sit them in the balcony. That way, he could keep his eye on them throughout whatever he had come to see. The slaves were not allowed to disrupt the master, so they would raise their hand to get permission to leave. When the master nodded, the slave would raise one finger to let the other people know that my master gave me permission to leave. Nugget number 4, the sagging pants. Some people say that the wearing of pants below the belt started in jail, but wearing the pants below the belt has a dark secret. And many people are not aware of it. It began when Africans were first enslaved in America, and it derived from a culture referred to as buck busting or buck breaking. Initially, this term was referred to taming wild horses, but Southern plantation owners used the phrase to refer to Black males. The practice was used to break in defiant Black male slaves as if they were untamed beasts. It was supposed to deter other slaves for going up against their masters. Unruly slaves would be taken to a public place where all the other slaves were watching. They were told to lower their pants and bend forward. Then the master would brutally rape the man. After that, the slave would be forced to wear his pants with no belts. Of course, they didn't have any, and allow them to sag so others would know that he had been busted or broken in. Young men in America began wearing sagging pants during the 1990s. It is done in jail because inmates are not allowed to have belts to hold their pants up. Those who rape other incarcerated men do it as a way to get them to bend to their will. I think if people knew these facts, they wouldn't continue to wear their pants below their belts. Both in prison and during slavery, this practice was and is used to dehumanize men. I'm going to end now by reading a poem that I wrote last month. I read this on the internet while Dr. King sat in a jail in Atlanta. He asked his fellow clergy to get involved and support the civil rights movement by asking them to be extremists. So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists will we be? Will we be extremists for hate, or will we be extremists for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice, or will we be extremists for the cause of justice? And then I began to write a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was a strong, intelligent man. Equality, justice, and peace he did stand. He has long since been gone, but the memory of him still lingers on. Our praises to God we loudly sing. Dr. King wanted freedom to ring. He wanted peace for every boy and girl. He wanted peace all over the world. I just wonder how it would be if he was still here. I wonder what he would say if he was here today. If he was here, he'd be 92. But I believe equality, justice, and peace would still be true. We say these things, but what truth do they bring? We keep killing one another, but we proclaim that we are sisters and brothers. Live, love, and be kind to one another. Let's try to be sisters and brothers. We can count on this. You just watch and see. Then we will all be free. Let his freedom ring. Let his praises sing. We will all be free. Thank you, Reverend Mason, for giving me this opportunity. Week.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis.
Yes, sir. She did it again.
Dr. Davis, Dr. Davis, Dr. Davis. What can I say? I'll let you say it.
Yes, sir. She did it again. She has done it again. And I tell you, I have enjoyed it, Sister Lily. And I want you to come back next month. Don't just let this be just for Black History Month. Maybe he'll sneak
They
you
only
in
gave
once
us
a month.
1 month.
Huh?
They only gave us 1 month.
I know. But maybe he'll let you come back another week and sneak another one in on us.
All right.
That was nice. That was really nice. I enjoy you. I really enjoyed you.
Thank you.
Sister Lily, you know you have a special place in my heart, and I appreciate your poem, your support, your friendship, and we are just blessed to be able to have someone like you to be able to expose us to many of the things that folk did not know.
Yes. Thank you so much for allowing me to do that.
You're
And
so
if people read, like you said, if they read, they would find out a lot of things. I mean, simple things. You would think it didn't go back that far, but it did. I talked to my grandchildren a lot, and they asked me about TV. I said, we had no TV, but we listened. They said, well, what did you do? We listened to the radio. The
That's
radio
right.
had stories just like TV.
That's right.
Well, how could you see? But I've always been a person. If somebody's telling a story, then I'm right there. It's as though I'm right there. And I guess that's why I always loved to read. And so I was very much involved in that story, whatever the story was on TV, on the radio, because we had no TV, no telephone, no TV. We played games, we read books, and we play school all the time. So that's how we learn. And I keep on doing it. At my age now, I keep reading.
Well, I remember when I was coming along, like you said, well, we did have TVs, but we didn't have the ability to watch them that often. You know, Mama and them didn't want us watching TV that much. But one of the big things that I enjoyed was we used to listen to the baseball game on the radio. That was the big thing, listening to the baseball game on the radio. That was the big thing, listening to the baseball game on the radio. And I am just so grateful for what you have shared. And one of our viewers, as you can see, submitted the comment saying that the poem was a blessing. Thank you so much. And so to all of our viewers, we encourage you to continue at every broadcast to share your comments. Dr. Davis, I guess we should probably put at least a part of what she said out there on a regular basis so folk would stop raising their finger in church. If they knew exactly what they were doing, Dr. Davis, maybe they would stop raising their finger in church.
Yeah. That sounds about right. But with some folk, it's just a habit. And
It
so
is.
I mean, they'll continue to do it because it's just a habit.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. And certainly um, wearing your pants down and not having a belt on is a stipular for me for young men and young,
Yes.
especially in my family. I told my daughters, don't bring no man to meet me and his pants is hanging down off his backside. I told them, don't do it. I said, you better tell them before they get to me that they got to wear a belt while they are in and around me because I'm not going to stand it. Not just that, Sister Lily, you didn't talk about it, but the wearing of the shoes with the
Oh, uh-huh.
they had the big thing with wearing the shoestring, wearing Timberland
Yes.
boots, and the shoestrings are not tied, and it amazes me at how some of these people can, and I won't just say some of these young women are doing the same thing. They
Doing
wear
the same thing. Yeah.
off their butt, and they're walking around with their shoes untied. But the interesting thing is, they get in trouble and do things. How in the world you gonna run from the crime scene with your pants falling down and
Yep.
with your shoes untied? I
Yeah.
don't understand. Where is the logic? Where is the logic to that? Where is it? Where is it? But again, it goes back to some things that we talked about a little earlier that we need to get back to.
Yes. Yes.
Get back to sitting down at the table, having family time, where families can communicate around the kitchen table.
Mhm.
I still like to have dinner around the table. I still enjoy that. We become so uppity that now we have a china closet with china dishes in it that we don't break out and use hardly ever, unless it's a extremely special. In fact, we don't even break them out for Thanksgiving and Christmas anymore.
No.
We just keep on using the regular stuff. I think we ought to break out the china and set the table. And I mean, in many houses they don't even have the table's not even set no more like it used to be. Y'all remember the days when the table used to be set and
Yes.
a placemat was at every chair at the table?
Yes.
Y'all remember them days?
Yes, I
Yes, sir.
do.
Yes, sir. But those days are gone, brother. Those days are gone.
Gone are
Families
those
don't sit
days.
down and eat together. Parents eat one time, the children eat another time. They don't sit down and eat like we used to do. I was raised in a family of 11, and we had all 11 children. My father and mother had all of us at the table at one time, and we had to eat together. And my father said, listen, when we call you for dinner, you come and eat with us. If you can't come and eat with us, go to bed because you're not going to eat after us.
That's
And
right.
that's the way my father and mother was. We had to all sit down and eat breakfast together. We all sat down and ate dinner together. And I'm telling you, that's just the way we were. But nowadays, no, the children eat one time, and you might have them eating by themselves one time and somebody else. And it's the same thing even when they do holidays. I mean, special days. You talk about pulling out the china. No, get a paper plate. And you go take your plate, and you go here and they go there and all that stuff. But it's no togetherness no more. And as you can see, that's why the family is so divided. The
Yes.
family is so separated. It's a shame.
Yes. Yes.
Well, certainly we talked about that earlier in the broadcast, Dr. Davis, the fact that things are not the same and how not only did we eat at the table, but we had to sit at the table and read books, read the Bible,
Yep.
and all that kind of
Yep.
stuff. Mama made sure we were there. We talked about folk aren't cooking anymore. Ain't no homemade meals. They ain't
Yep.
cooking from scratch. We talked about Bisquick. I know you don't remember no Bisquick, Dr. Davis. Bisquick back in the days.
Yeah.
And every home had had at least 2 or 3 wooden spoons and a big
Yep.
round bowl. Usually
Yep.
it was a round ceramic bowl, and then they also probably had a stainless steel bowl where Mama used to mix up all of her cakes and biscuits and bread. All
Mhm.
stuff was mixed up in them bowls that she used, and that wooden spoon. In fact, that wooden spoon would mix up the dough and would get your hand spanked too when you did wrong. That wooden spoon had multiple functions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, certainly we
Right.
have learned some things today, and hopefully we will continue. We will talk with Sister Lily and see maybe, because Dr. Davis, she's an important person. Her schedule, we got to get on her, see if we can get on her schedule, because people like her,
Right.
they don't just have a lot of free time.
Right.
Even the time that we would consider to be free, they busy doing something.
Right. Right.
Have to have a conversation with her and find
Right.
out about some possibility of doing some other things. Well, it's been an outstanding show, outstanding program as we wind up Black History Month. We're looking forward to doing some things. We encourage those who are viewing to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not already done so. One of the reasons is because it helps us to be able to do some things. And like you said, Sister Lily, I'm hoping that we can get to the place where we can start a book club.
That'd be great.
And then do some other things, especially once the pandemic lifts, where we can have some kind of gathering and do some things, have some fun, and have some fellowship. But I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to it. Things are going to change. Things are going to get better. We just have to keep our head high.
Yes.
Keep our trust in the good Lord.
Yes.
We have to keep our faith in God. And we have to continue to love one another. Do the things that we're supposed to do to stay safe.
Yes. Yes.
If we do those things, the good Lord promised He'd take care of us.
That's
He
right.
promised
That's
that.
right.
He promised that.
Yes.
And
Yes,
so
sir.
on. Go ahead, sir.
No, I said you're right. You're right. Absolutely. He promised that. And once again, if you don't read the promises of God's word, you won't understand your great blessings that He has for you.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Once again, thank you all so much for sharing. It's been fun. You've been a part of Let's Talk About It.